Do you remember the Alamo? It was built as a mission. Missions are like these little chapels where priests and nuns go to help like the people that are in the area. In this case, they built it in Mexico. And they were trying to help the natives and people that were from Mexico and any pioneers that would come through. They just pretty much basically helped everybody. For a while, right before 1800, the mission was abandoned and it started getting used by Spanish troops that were coming through. So it was used for soldiers. The part of Mexico that wanted to abdicate from the rest of Mexico, they wanted to be liberated. So we had some troops called Texians that came in, and they had some struggles. They started fighting with a lot of the Mexican troops. So what ended up happening was that the Texians came in, and there was a big battle over the land of San Antonio. And the soldiers joined together with a lot of the Mexican people that were living there to try to get liberated. They wanted to be liberated from the rest of Mexico. So in the end, the troops from the Texians, along with the Mexican people, villagers that were living there, did manage to win, and they chased a lot of the Mexican troops out of the city. But it was a short-lived win, because what ended up happening was that the president of Mexico decided he was coming to take it back. By 1836, the Texian soldiers decided to refit the San Antonio mission, known as the Alamo, as their home base to prepare for this battle with the president of Mexico. Now, Colonel James Bowie was given orders by Sam Houston to blow up the Alamo. Don't let the president come and take the actual chapel. Don't let him come and get it. It was a home base, like a fortress. They also didn't want Santa Anna coming to gain any of the weapons that were in the Alamo. They didn't want him to come, once he took over, they didn't want him to come take any of the weapons. So Sam Houston ordered Colonel James Bowie to blow it up. Just blow up the whole thing. But James Bowie thought, no, he didn't want to blow it up. He wanted to hold down the fortress. James Bowie also didn't think that they could move all the cannons, because there were actually about 25 cannons at the Alamo, and he didn't have enough men to actually push these. These were heavy. It was going to be hard to move the weapons. Now, at the time, Santa Anna wasn't president yet. He was actually still just a general, but he gathered troops to go take back the city of San Antonio. Now, Colonel William Travis also showed up at the Alamo with another 100 men, so they thought, well, this is good. We've got now 100 other men. And then a little bit later, Davy Crockett, the famous Davy Crockett that would wear the raccoon skin cap, fur cap, he showed up with about another 20 men. So they thought, this is good. We're getting a lot of people that are going to help us with this fight to come and fight for the city of San Antonio to abdicate from Mexico. Now, the last count of as many people as they could gather, as many men as they could gather to fight, they ended up coming up with about 189 men to fight. Now, even before the battle started, some of the men had fallen sick, even James Bowie. Supposedly, James Bowie had been sick with typhoid pneumonia, and he was bedridden. He couldn't even get out of bed when the troops arrived with General Santa Anna. And when the troops arrived, there were anywhere between 4,500 to 6,000 troops. So the Mexican troops surrounded the Alamo. It is said that all 189 men fought to their last breath. Even James Bowie, that was in his bed, fought. From his bed, he fought for the battle. But Santa Anna had ordered that there should be left no survivors. Now, their heroism would be stamped through all of history at how heroic they were to fight to the last stand, to the last man. Now, it's said that General Santa Anna refused to give them a proper burial. He had them piled into piles, the bodies of the men, and set on fire. Some of them were buried into mass graves, just unmarked, and some were even thrown into the San Antonio River. Now, supposedly, this 189 men that were in the Alamo managed to defeat and injure or kill 1,500 Mexican soldiers to 2,000. The battle cries could be heard all across San Antonio. This 189 men managed to last in this battle for For 13 days they held out. Now, after a few days, Santa Anna ordered that his soldiers would go back to the Alamo and burn it down, because he was afraid that the people in San Antonio were going to see it as a shrine, as a memorial of these brave men, and they were going to rise up and they were going to fight. So he ordered his soldiers to go back, knock it down, burn it down to the ground. So Santa Anna ordered his field commander, General Andrade, to go knock it down. And so when General Andrade went back to the mission, him and his men quickly returned back to the Mexican camp. And Santa Anna was furious. Like, why did you return? Why did you not listen to me? Why did you leave it up? The people will rebel. Now, the men were very shaken and very pale from what they had experienced. So they recounted to Santa Anna what they had seen. They said when they came up to the Alamo, they saw 6 devils that were spirit looking, and that they had flaming swords, and they surrounded the troops and didn't allow them to get near the Alamo. They so feared destroying the church of what would happen to them. So word started going around that there were actual spirits protecting the remains of the Alamo. Now rumors spread that the ghosts that were there protecting the Alamo, that they were the spirits of the soldiers who had died there. But other people thought it was the original monks that had built the original chapel. Now Santa Anna just laughed at his soldiers. He didn't believe the idea of spirit warriors. So he decided to go over there himself. So he enlisted some of his troops and they took off over there to go burn it down themselves. He was determined to take it down. And when he got there, he directed some of his troops to go down where the long strip is, like a barracks. And he told them to go down that way because they were going to take it all down. But instead of being confronted with the 6 demon spirits, he was confronted by a tall one. This spirit rose up from the top of the barracks, and in each hand it held a ball of fire. So the troops that Santa Anna brought with him all dropped to their knees and they covered their eyes because they were terrified. They just covered their eyes. They were scared to even look. So Santa Anna and Andrade, they just took off out of there. They just said, just leave it. I mean, it would fall to ruins by itself eventually. And eventually, after many, many years, it did start to crumble and fall. By 10 years, Texas had been annexed into the United States. So that had been converted into like some barracks for soldiers. By 1871, the decision was made to go ahead and demolish part of the church and demolish part of the barracks, but the demolishing never came because across the street at the Menger Hotel, people would see the spirits walking around the Alamo. People staying at the hotel would swear that they saw a whole army of ghosts walking up and down in front of the Alamo, patrolling it. Sometimes they would see the ghosts just standing there. Sometimes they would see them walking in and out, like through walls or doorways. So it was quickly said, no, it cannot be demolished. And instead, for a time, it was turned into a police station and a jail. Between 1894 and 1897, the Express newspaper would report many sightings at the jail, that the prisoners would hear the moaning ghosts at night, or they would see the ghosts patrolling at night. In fact, the ghosts were appearing so frequently that the police officers themselves didn't want to patrol at night. So eventually, they actually had to close it down. It could no longer be a prison. Now, it's said that even before the Battle of the Alamo, all of that land right there was actually a cemetery already to begin with. And many times when they're doing construction there, that the construction workers will pull up bones from the ground. So they don't even know. They have to backdate it. Was this even before the Alamo, or are these part of the mass graves of when Santa Anna and his soldiers too were all perished in the battle? And nowadays, in the upstairs left window, it said that there's a little blonde little boy that has seen there. Now they think that he was one of the ones that was evacuated, but they think that, because Santa Anna did allow some women and children to leave before the battle ensued, and they let them live. So they think this little boy may have survived this and he was evacuated, but they think maybe his parents did not survive. Maybe he returns to the site. Maybe he returns to look for them. There's also a spiritual Mexican soldier that they say is seen pacing back and forth with his hands clasped behind his back and his chin down, and it looks like he's shaking his head. And a lot of people think that it's one of the soldiers that was in command, that Santa Anna ordered him to kill some of the soldiers that were captured, but he refused, and he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to kill the prisoners. So Santa Anna did it himself, and then he was so furious he almost killed that soldier himself. And they say that now he paces back and forth as a spirit in front of the Alamo. Now, since this battle was so long ago in 1836, you would think that the apparitions would start to dissipate and not be seen so often anymore, but it always seems like they increase. More and more people report hearing voices or seeing the apparitions walking around. Some have even said that they've seen a man up at the top with a small child, and that's a spirit up on the roof. Now you ask yourself, why do these spirits remain there? And a lot of people just think that these spirits just want you to remember the Alamo. Okay, so believe it or not, be careful, want to stay safe, best get superstitious. Peace.